Well, welcome everybody. We have such a special guest with us today, Caylee. Wow, there's just so many things to say about her. She's been a salon owner for 10 years. She's been in the industry for 25. She's a certified John Maxwell team trainer and coach. She's a L'Oreal professional business trainer and coach. She's a course creator with Inspiring Champions. She was winner of Canada's Best Beauty Talent. She has her own business that she's doing with strategies for salon owners that we will dive into her courses for sure. But, Caylee, kind of take us through your journey of the past 25 years.
Wow, it sounds like a lot, doesn't it? I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. It's just, I think it goes to just consistency. When you see someone with a lot of things behind their name, it's just that they kept going in the same path and being consistent. And I just always had a passion for this industry since I started skipping high school when I was 15. And I wanted to explore every facet of it. And I always was curious about, what the next level looked like. And so it just led me into all these beautiful experiences throughout the industry. Some of my favorite being traveling as an educator through Thailand and through the States and Paris, and just so many amazing life experiences along with the career. So it's been really fun. I never knew there would be so much to offer in this industry. When I started down this route, it was more, I didn't want to go to university, and I got my first job at a hair salon by luck. It wasn't something I dreamt of as a child. I never knew what it would offer me, but it's been an amazing journey.
You have had an incredible journey, and I love watching you and all your different facets that you jump into, which I think is so amazing, which I think we should talk about on the podcast today, because I think sometimes when I meet my brand new students in my schools, and I don't think they realize the opportunities that are out there. And so if you could talk to the future professionals of the industry, what would you tell them, Caylee?
I would just tell them to let their passion drive them and their curiosity. And I think we all have this inner spark that drives us. And a lot of people shut that down because they, too much, they overthink it, or they're thinking too logically or something like that. But I always just let that fuel me to this day. And it always leads me somewhere amazing. So I think, if you're that young student thinking what can this industry offer me? It's really, for me, there's always this pull of when I saw someone on stage for my first time at an ABA, I was like, oh my God, they're so amazing. And how do I get to be as good as them? And how do I do that? And I was in awe of them and wanted to figure that out. And then meeting Michael O'Rourke from Sexy Hair Concepts. He was just so inspirational, and he connected with people. And so there's always been a mentor that I looked up to and wanted to learn from, and wanted to see how they do life. And that's just, really taken me. And also being open to opportunities. When I think back of how the opportunities came, I think a lot of people wouldn't have jumped on them. So for example, one of the biggest opportunities that I had in my career, I was actually, which is funny because I was really young, I was 21. And I had started working at a salon at 15. And so I was already I need a life change at 21. And so I told my boss, I'm going to Australia. I don't know when I'll be back. You can keep my job or not, but I'm going. And I told Sexy Hair, I was working for Sexy Hair at the time. And I told them too, I said, I'm going to Australia, so I won't be able to take any jobs. And so I'm in Australia about 6 weeks into my trip, and I'm with a girlfriend there. I didn't take any tools. I didn't plan to do any hair. I just wanted to go and, see what was down that route. And I got an email from someone at Sexy Hair Concepts, and it was a bit sarcastic. And he said, too bad you're on a sabbatical, because we had an opportunity for you to work in Thailand. And I was like, what do you mean I'm on a sabbatical? I just thought I couldn't take jobs because they were going to be, inaccessible for me. I'm like, Thailand's actually closer to me now than it would have been if I was home. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And he's like, what? And so I went to the distributor in Australia and I bought all my new tools that I would need to do the show. And then I looked at my hair and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been on the beach and I've got roots and everything. And so I bought some bleach and I didn't have foil. They didn't have foil for some reason. So we used like cotton balls in the bathroom to put a few highlights to make it look like I hadn't been at the beach the whole time. And so, I always thought about that. And I'm like, how many people would have been that reactive, right? A lot of people would be like, oh, I don't have my tools. Too bad I can't go. Oh, that wasn't my plan or this or that. And so I think that's a key to, living all these experiences is that I've been very reactive to opportunities. And that experience in Thailand was life-changing for me, like not just in my career, but in the things I saw there, the way people live. I never seen poverty like that. So, that just changed, of course, my whole life, seeing, the way people live and having so much gratitude for what I had experienced in Canada. And then I made such a great relationship with the guy who hosted me in Thailand, and he invited me back. So at 26, I got to go back again. And that was just another amazing experience. And my friend got to come with me too. My friend that I went traveling with, she was also a hairstylist. So she ended up coming on both of those trips. So, there's just such amazing experiences if you're ready to jump and you're ready to take risks and not always think about, like, I could have thought, oh, it's too expensive to buy new shears and new blow dryer and all of that. And I was like, I'm getting a free trip to Thailand and I'm getting paid to go there. I can buy some new tools.
Absolutely.
So, removing a lot of the excuses you have and just taking the opportunities that come your way, I think has really changed, has given me so many opportunities. Yeah.
For sure. So let's talk about where you're currently at in the industry with your Salon Owner mini courses, your Salon Owners Circle, and the Salon Profit Project. Let's kind of talk about those. Break those down for us.
Sure. So again, I'm just always curious and trying to find a better way to do things. And I love finding that better way and then bringing it to people. And the salon owner journey to me was quite difficult. Kind of, I compare it to parenting. It's like, you always want to be a parent. And then when you're a parent, you're like, whoa, what the heck is this? Like, nobody told me. It's kind of the same thing with opening the salon. It was like, whoa, like nobody told me how much work this was going to be. Nobody told me how like financially taxing this was going to be. All these things that I didn't know how to do. And not only, I'm pretty good at finding solutions, but not only did I not know how to do them, I didn't know what they were called. So I couldn't Google it. I didn't know how to ask for help with it because I didn't know what it was. Like, I didn't know what the problem I was having was. So now I have the vocabulary to say, like, I had operational problems and I didn't have systems in place and I didn't have KPIs and I didn't have my mission and vision and values written out. But all I knew was I was experiencing challenges in my business and I didn't know how to fix them or even how to identify them. And I think if you can't identify the problem you're having, you can't find the solution for it. So I just started taking courses and hiring coaches, and all of the pieces were coming together, but slowly. And so I would spend a lot of money to go on a weekend trip, and I would get a ton of information, but I would come home and I would still have trouble implementing, and I would still be missing pieces. And so I wanted to create something that was a complete, like give you a complete picture of your entire business. And obviously not all at once, but that's what the Salon Owners Circle, we take you through the 4 different pillars. And so I've come to identify that there's different pillars in a business. And the way I see the pillars are your purpose, and your purpose encompasses why you're there. So what's your mission? What's your vision? What's your values? What's driving you to run this company? So we spend, a quarter of the year unpacking all of that kind of stuff and diving into your why. And then the next pillar I see is people. And people has so many different facets, because you have your leadership aspect, which I know you are all amazing at. Tina's just such an amazing leader. And I know that John Maxwell has given so many resources for that, but you have the leadership aspect of people, but you also have the process aspect. And so, your chain of accountability, your growth chart, your job descriptions, all of the things that help you to hold people accountable. So that's another quarter that we go through. And then we have your profits, because without making a profit, the company starts to run tight, and you could bounce payroll, you could not be able to stock your products, all of these problems start to happen in your business. So I'm really passionate about sustainable, profitable companies, because otherwise you can't have your company. And so I know a lot of people are afraid to talk about money, or they don't want to focus on money, but you can't have the other pillars without this one. This one is really the fuel that keeps your business going. So that's a third pillar. And then the last pillar, I see it as the last pillar, is publicity. So that is your marketing pillar. And the reason I see this as last is because you need to have clarity of who you are, what's your voice, what's your message, to be able to create your brand. Your people you need to know what your KPIs are, what your systems are to measure before you spend marketing dollars to start putting clients in their chairs. Because if you're putting clients in their chair and they're not retaining them, or they don't know how to convert the sale, or all of these things that are behind it, you're wasting a lot of resources. So we put then the marketing pillar as that last pillar, where it all comes together, that you have the processes in place and you can start to market to this machine that's working, right? This whole enterprise that's actually working. And so that's the way I see business now. And so that's encompassed all in our Salon Owners Circle, which is a monthly membership. And then I have our course, which is the Salon Profit Project. And that's our deep dive into the financial pillar. And so that is everything I feel you need to know as a salon owner, from A to Z of running the financial pillar. There's nothing left out. I felt that a lot of the courses that I took would give me little glimmers into it, but none of it was encompassing the entire picture. And so that's what I set out to do. And that one's a heavy lifting. It's a 12-week program. It's a deep dive. And you really come out understanding your numbers, and not only understanding them, my mission is that you fall in love with them. So the bold statement. And no one believes me, but I have so many testimonials of them saying, oh my God, I actually love looking at my numbers now. I actually feel so empowered by understanding my business. I actually could run my business through the pandemic because I knew how to make adjustments after taking your course. And so that just fires me up to that was my vision, was I don't want you just to understand your numbers. I know numbers sound boring, but I actually want you to understand it so well that you love it and you love looking at that side of your business. And so that's what that program does. And so I'm having so much fun with it, and supporting salon owners. And it's just, again, been an incredible journey. It's really great.
It's incredible. I love that so much. And I'm a living testimony of someone that can actually fall in love with numbers, And so one of the things that I do, and Sean and I, we go back and forth on this. I'm like, can you make it pretty? Can you make it fun? Colorful, please, for me, and even my CPA. So I would love to kind of stay on this just for a moment here, Caylee, because one of the things, so Sean and I, we coach salon owners, and the very first thing we look at is send us your numbers and send us your profit and loss statements, your income statements. But they kind of look at us like, oh, it's not ready yet. I've been working on my numbers by myself. I don't have an accountant or a CPA or a bookkeeper. I don't have nobody. It's just me. And so we run against that. And then it's really difficult for us to move forward in the coaching with them, because it's such a blind spot. You got to know your numbers to grow your numbers. And so we can only guess, right, at that point until we get those numbers from them. So kind of talk to that salon owner right now. What's the first step for them that they need to get in tune with their numbers first and foremost?
Well, that's exactly it. And the first step is to have accurate numbers. And so even though there's a lot of numbers out there, even you're saying some of them come to you and say, I do my own numbers, that's fine. Some of them actually have bookkeepers and they still have inaccurate numbers.
I know. Yes. We've seen that too.
So we still want to base it. So that's our first step in the coaching, is to, exactly like you, is to get numbers we can count on. And if we can't get a perfect financial statement, because it does take time, we're always working like 20 days after the month to try to collect that. Then we just try to run the reports or manually retrieve as much information as we can. But then that's the first step, is like, how are we going to get your numbers? I coach everyone out of doing it themselves. I don't see why any salon owner on the planet should do their numbers themselves. It's a really inexpensive thing to outsource to get a bookkeeper. And so, you just have so many other roles to do that it's probably not the best use of your time, even if you like it. You can like doing it, but probably you don't like it, and you're torturing yourself and you don't want to do it. And so you're putting it off and you're putting it off, and it's getting messier and messier. And so, hiring a bookkeeper is definitely the first step, but not only finding a bookkeeper that you communicate really well with, that's willing to answer all your questions, who's willing to set your P&L up the way you want to see it. And so we give our students sample P&Ls to give to their bookkeepers. Our one-on-one clients, we talk directly to the bookkeeper. And sometimes, I've recommended that they let the bookkeeper go, because there's some bookkeepers who have attitude problems and are like, I do it this way or no way. And there's some bookkeepers we found that have just recorded numbers from, I'm like, where did you get this number? Like, show me where you got this. And they're like, oh, like they were recording the retail number as the wholesale number. I'm like, why is the retail sales and the retail purchases the same number? Like, you wouldn't believe like the mess that I've seen in the books, which is why it's so important for you, the owner, to understand your numbers so that you can recognize that, because I think we're too trusting. You know what I think happens, Tina, is I think that we undervalue ourselves as beauty professionals, and maybe the world undervalues us, and the school system undervalues us. And so we say to ourselves, well, the bookkeeper's smarter than me, and the bookkeeper knows more about numbers than me, and so the bookkeeper must be doing a good job. And it's just not accurate. Like, there's so many bookkeepers not doing a good job and providing you with like false information. And there's even accounting that's done. I had a $20,000 payback from an accountant who filed something incorrectly. And unfortunately, I was out of country, so I missed the timing deadline to amend it, and ended up having to pay back something I was actually entitled to. It was an apprenticeship grant that I was actually entitled to, but because she filed it incorrectly, I didn't get it. And so, you can't just like blindly hand things over to people and not understand them, because I'll use like a mom. When you start saying things your mom said, and then you're like, oh gosh, like the buck stops with you, right? Like the buck stops with you, meaning that the government doesn't care if your bookkeeper made a mistake. He's going to ask you for money. All of those problems find their way back to you. So it's your responsibility to understand your business and your numbers. But that sounds really heavy. And I don't want it to feel heavy. It's actually really fun when you understand it. And that's why I say, fall in love with your numbers, because it's so empowering when you can talk to a CFO. Like, my father-in-law is a CFO of a law corporation in London, and now we hold on good debates about how the financials should look.
Amazing.
That's really empowering from someone who was like beauty school dropout. So I think, if you're that salon owner who's like intimidated by your numbers because maybe you think you didn't understand math in high school, or maybe you think that, you're not good at it. I challenge you to learn that area of your business, because you will feel so empowered and proud of yourself and able to make much smarter decisions for your business.
Keeping on with, numbers and stuff, you talked about KPIs. What are some of the main KPIs that you focus on?
There's things I look for in the P&L. So there's the industry benchmarks. And again, I love using industry benchmarks as like a dip your toe in the water, see what the best practices are. But then there's your benchmarks. And so some of your businesses can't hit the industry benchmarks because your rent is much higher than the rent recommendation, or your products are more expensive than the product recommendation. And so in the Salon Profit Project, that's what we create with you. It's a self-guided study, but we meet you every week and create with you a profit plan. And that's where you can see, like, if I continue to run my company like I did 3 months, the last 3 months, this is where I'll be in a year. And you can see where you need to dial down. So the benchmarks are a great place to look, but you also just have to be like, what's realistic in my company? So if I can't bring the rent down anymore, how much do I need to increase the sales? How much do I need to decrease on these other costs? Can I go deskless? Can I increase my retail sales? So there's so many strategies. So basically what we're teaching our students is to understand each line item of your business and know how to influence it. And so when you can see one that's out, then we have the correlating strategy to influence that number. So whether it be a number that you need to increase coming in, or a number that you need to decrease going out. Otherwise, we always go back to productivity, retention, all the standard basic ones. But I think each business needs their unique KPIs that speak to their brand and their message. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, if I gave every role only 3 things to be accountable for, what would they be? And, how can I, what are the 3 things that cover everything? Because if we try to get people doing too many things, it just causes a lot of confusion and it's hard to get that role performing. So we really look at each business and, each owner's gifts. What are the gifts that they have? What's the thing that's, they're fueling in their business, and keep them in that role, and then get the other team army built up around them for the areas they're not good. So I have my army that make me look really good, because without Catherine, I would have had a hard time getting on this call today. I would have been mixed up and where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? Catherine is really strong at all the details, and she knows me so well. We've been working together so long. She knows me so well. Whenever I have something big coming up, she's up in the morning earlier sending me everything she knows I'm going to ask her for to prepare for that, because she knows the morning of I'm going to be like, what am I doing today?
That's amazing.
So you need to equip yourself as a leader. You need to equip yourself with people that make you look good, and so that
Love
you
that.
can stay in your strengths. And so Catherine makes me look superhuman, but really my husband's like, if Catherine left, you wouldn't have a business. What would you do? You can't function without her. And I'm like, yeah, that would be a problem, wouldn't it? Thankfully, Catherine also documents everything she does because she's just so amazing. But nobody's good at everything, but your business has key functions that have to happen. And so, you don't have to do all of them, but they all need to get done. And so we need to set up a roles for you, indicators for you that show you that those functions are happening.
So good. I love this so much. And I love the fact that you called it a profit plan and not a budget plan, because that sounds so much more positive, So I love that you kind of snuck in for a second. Can I go deskless? And I'd love to hear your take on that, because that's a big push right now from what I'm seeing in the industry. And I know it's something we are educating ourselves on with as well too. What's your take on that?
My take on it from the numbers that I've reviewed is that any 4-chair salon or under should be deskless.
Okay.
I haven't seen it financially work out for any small business of that size to carry that salary.
Yeah.
I think after that, it gets complicated to be deskless. You'd have to have some really great systems in place, and you would have to have a team really on board. But usually I think 5-chair plus of productive stylists can support that. that role, but a lot of people don't need the role as heavy as they have it. So for example, some salons, you know, they're having the receptionist come in the day before to check calls. They're, you know, to line up the week, which is beautiful. Like, that's great. It makes it really comfortable for everyone. But it's maybe not necessary. So when I was running Hype, we looked at that role really carefully of what do we actually need. And so we could have 3 key holders working the morning together, early morning, without any support. And then when the bulk of the team came in, say at 10 or 11, then we could have that receptionist for that 8 hours. And then we could have some night people that were key holders that didn't need any coverage for that evening. So we could really get a lot of productivity out of the day without having coverage for the entire day or before and after the day. And there's so many systems you can put in place to make the opening go faster, the closing go faster. I mean, I remember going to meet Catherine. So Catherine also, she's with me in this company, but she also ran my salon with me. Mm-hmm. And I remember meeting her to go through the closing list that I had created for her. And she was like, I think we need to refine the closing list. So I was like, okay, I'll come do it with you and let's see what we can do. And I was like, what is this? I asked you to do all this? I got through like the first like 5 checks and I was like sitting on the couch and I was like, I'm not doing that.
Amazing.
It's like, yeah, that's what I've been trying to do for so then I was like, you know what, I can't even do this tonight. Like, I just need to like rethink this whole thing. Like, let's go home and let's rethink this whole thing. And then we refined it as we had like pre-closing checklists that everybody was involved with to prepare for the end of the day. And then we got like the key functions that were really important down into like a smaller items, not this like really overwhelming checklist. And so, you know, we just refined it. And for me, it's important that it's something that I can get through. Like, if I'm asking someone else to do it, I better be able to get through it. And so that was really eye-opening for me of like, oh my gosh, I'm asking her to do something at the end of the day. And I just want to get the heck out of here. She probably does too.
So we've talked about, what I love is that you said, when you think about people, think of the 3 things that you have to be accountable for. Like, so if you're thinking of a salon owner, what do you place those 3 number 1 things that is their main role within the salon?
Well, see, that's where I see it as really unique, because it depends on their giftings. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, that's the work that we do with the KPIs are always really unique based on what your key giftings are. Because some owners tell me, I just want to do hair. And so we're working on having, you know, all of the other business set up. And some are like, I want to get away from doing hair and I want to work on my business. So they're going to have different things. So like for me, in my business now, I think about, okay, I need to always be partnering up with people. And so one of my accountabilities for myself is to every month seek out a new partner that to do a podcast or to do something, you know, to get in front of different audiences. So I know the things that need to happen in order for my role to work. So when I was a salon owner, I figured out that my role was coaching. So I needed to measure the morale of the salon. So I would have them give me a rating of what the morale of the salon was. I needed to make sure I had all my meetings set up with my team so that I was giving them the one-on-one support. So I wouldn't say, I mean, aside from the basics of supporting your team, supporting your clients, and being financially responsible for your business, if I had to summarize it in 3 for you as an owner, that's what I would say generically is the things you need to do is be financially responsible, make sure your team is happy, make sure your clients are happy. But I would like to go much more deep on it as like who you are as a person, what you do naturally well. And so what do you need to hold yourself accountable to? What are your functions in the business that you need to hold yourself accountable to? And then what are the other functions that need to happen?
Love that.
Did that answer? Did that
Yeah.
answer? I'll have to think of some more specific examples. I'll try to come up with a few more. Bettina, what would you say? Like,
yeah.
what are your in.
I agree 1000%. I'm all about the strengths and the giftings and what do you want to do? And where are you at right now in this season? And let's shift right now. Okay. You're in a different season. So let's put you here. Like, what do you think? And continue to have that conversation, and kind of going back to what you were talking about. And I do believe it is always the owner's responsibility to protect the culture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Protect your environment and protect the vibe. And you just said it, measure the morality of the salon. Can you talk about that? Because I think for some owners, this is very intuitive. And I think for others, it's not. And so they want to, some owners want to measure it with numbers.
Well, I'll tell you why I measured it is because, what I knew when I opened my business was I didn't want to have less freedom than it has a chair rental. So I was a commission stylist for probably 10 years. And then I was a chair renter for probably 6 years. And at one point I rented 2 chairs and started to train my sister, and she was working alongside me. And I had a great life. I'd block my chair off for a month. I'd go away. I had a good income. I had autonomy. I was in control of my life. And I didn't want to lose any of that when I opened my business. And so the lens I always looked through when I was creating my business was, how can I set them up for success without me? So I immediately hired a payroll company. I didn't see myself signing checks every 2 weeks. So I immediately had a payroll company with automatic deposit. That's more common now, but 15 years ago when I had my salon, people were still writing checks. So I always looked through that lens of, how do I keep myself a little bit removed? And now I went way off track. Tina, what was your question again?
Yeah, just like really,
Morale.
you have to know the morality of what's happening in the salon, like the vibe. And I think sometimes I even get this way where I don't even see it. And it's like, wait a minute, Tina, wake up. Like, you have to be able to see this. And so how can they do that? Give some tangible tools or strategies to do that.
Yeah. Well, and so I found I was good at systemizing and removing myself, but the one thing that really counted on me was the morale, because I always came in and kind of rah-rahed everybody and got the energy going. And I was always the one driving, let's do a fundraiser, let's do a photo shoot, let's do this. I was always the one bringing the energy, and my team really fed off of that. And so when I would go away, because I would go away for 2 months from my business, the systems worked really well. Everything worked really well, but I would always come up and have to pick up the pieces on the morale. Yeah. That was the one thing that I would find would slide. And so that's where I started. The more and more I removed myself, pretty much the last year before I sold my business, I never went there. Like, I was in France. I was never there. And so I can't say that the morale was as high as it was when I was there. But I just had them rate on a scale of 1 to 10 for our weekly check-in. What's the morale of the salon? Just so I still have my finger on the pulse to know, if we did need to do something about it. And I had great people in place who, they were better than I was, because I'm so driven that I forget about people's feelings, and I forget about, common courtesies that you should do. Like, my manager would always bring Sabrina. I remember something happened in the business. Something happened. I can't remember what it was, but some kind of thing happened that was a bit shocking for everyone. Maybe it was a break-in or something like that. And I was kind of like, okay, life goes on. And she had brought in champagne and some things to celebrate everyone and make them feel good. And I was like, wow, that was really thoughtful. And it was so necessary. Like, if she hadn't done that, I don't know what repercussion I would have faced. Because for me, I was like, it's fine. I am so thankful that I sold my business before the pandemic. And not because I don't think I could have run it financially, but I would have been so insensitive to, masks, no masks, vaccines, I would have just been like, who cares? Like, get on with the business. So I think, God had a plan, knew I needed to sell. I sold my business in January of 2019.
Oh, wow.
And so, I think, I was definitely there to rah and drive towards a goal. But again, I needed my team to make me look good. because I wasn't always sensitive to people's needs and to, you know, some of the sensitivities that people have nowadays. I'm not that sensitive. So again, going back to the team, but rating the morale really helps you keep your finger on the pulse. And I think that's what's important for you as the leader. And I did notice a big drop in morale when I wasn't present. And so that showed me that there was still a hole in some of my systems, some of my training that didn't stay stabilized. So Lauren Gartland always says, measure what you treasure.
Yeah.
And so I treasured the morale being up. And so I started to measure it. And I think it doesn't mean you have to measure your morale, but I think like Lauren says, measure what you treasure. So what are the things that are important to you in your business? And let's start to measure those. And some things aren't tangible to measure, like morale's not very tangible. So a rating system works well for measuring anything that's intangible, because you can rate, if someone says, well, I just want to feel better. Well, what does that mean? Well, we could start rating you every day on how you feel. And then we're going to see if there's a progress in how you feel or not. But if you just say, I want to feel better, a month from now, I'm not going to be able to know if you feel better or not. Right.
Mhm.
So any of those intangible goals, if you apply that rating system to it, it really helps to make it a more tangible goal.
For sure, for sure. Well, this has been absolutely amazing, as any time we get to spend with you. Is how do people find you, and how do they sign up for your courses?
So I'm at Caylee Auge on Instagram, Facebook. My email is Caylee@CayleeAuge.com. And we have a course. So we have courses that you can find them on my Instagram. But we do have some guided courses, and our next Profit Project is starting in March. And that will be guided by me. So every week I'm on live with you. If it's something that you're like, I need that right now, you can go through our links in Instagram and you can just buy it as a self-study program, because I really want it to be accessible to everyone at all times. And then if you find you need more support in it, you could jump in with us in our guided group in March. I also have a website, Caylee@CayleeAuge.com. So I can even link it in, wherever this ends up, I can link it in.
Yeah, we'll
To give everyone easier access to it.
We'll make sure we add it there. Thank you again so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you,
Caylee.
Tina. Thanks for having me, Sean. It's always so great.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.